Hey.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome back, Misfits, and welcome back to a new episode. Today, we are continuing... I said that weird. Continuing the B-side stories. B-side stories. So, if you don't know, if this is just your first Misfit episode for some reason, or you skipped all the B-sides for some reason, and you're like, I'm going to start on
what's
this one
going on with these
because
B-sides?
they mention a fish. So, in the B-side stories, what we're doing is we're talking about the less popular stories of the Bible, but that are, of course, still powerful, still great to know, and they still teach us something about God, about Jesus, and we can apply it to our lives.
Right. So we wanted to share them.
Exactly. So today specifically, we're talking about one strange story. It sounds like a parable, but it's not.
As I was reading,
as I was reading it, I was like, "This sounds like a parable. This sounds like it's going somewhere else," but it's actually like
he's teaching a lesson.
Events.
It's like, well, he is, but it actually happened.
Exactly. So yeah, it's not a parable. So today we're talking about the shekel in the fish, also known as the coin in the fish, or the payment of the temple tax. Y'all have different versions, so you can find it under different things.
It all means the same.
Exactly.
Just so you know.
So this one is short, so we're actually going to we're going to break it down verse by verse, because it's actually very short. So we find the story in Matthew 17, 24 to 27, and here we go. So verse 24 says, on their arrival in Capernaum, the collectors of the temple tax came to Peter and asked him, doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax? So that's the first verse. So here we go to the explanation.
So we're going to explain it, break it down.
So this miracle of the coin in the fish's mouth took place in the last 6 months of Christ's ministry on earth, which is very interesting to think about. Yes. Because sometimes Bible timelines are wonky, especially if we don't know that much about the Bible. So it's nice when they tell us.
Yeah. You kind of get an idea of when this happened. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So payment of this tax could be made in person at the Passover festival in Jerusalem, but collections were made in other areas of Palestine and abroad a month earlier. This incident therefore takes place about a month before Passover.
And it'd be like, oh, they Venmo'd that.
Exactly. No, I paid it. I don't have the receipt on me, but like, I did.
But like I did, yeah.
Yeah. Ask JoJo. I paid JoJo. You don't know who JoJo is? This has nothing to do with the story, but like I just wanted to state the fact that Palestine is actually where the area in like the Bible specifically where the Philistines were from. So the word Palestine evolved from the word Philistine. I don't know if you knew that. That's really cool. I don't know. I like to put these things together and be like, oh.
Yeah, just give you a little nugget of information.
Yeah, exactly. And now we continue. So this tribute, the payment basically, was not a civil tax, but a religious tax, also known as the temple tax. The amount due was a coin known as the didrachma, the wages of about 2 days' work for a day laborer. It was based on Exodus 30, verses 11 through 16, which required every Jewish man to pay half a shekel as ransom money towards the building of the tabernacle. Faithful Jewish men paid this obligation. Others sought to escape the responsibility. Yeah. So if you were like Paul, like the Jew of Jews, then you would pay this tax.
You would be the first in line.
If you were just like, I don't really do this whole
I'm not really involved
Jewish thing, I'm not gonna pay it.
Yeah. I'll get to it if I can. If not,
exactly.
I'm not gonna worry about it.
We'll see. These are the same people that don't tithe. Yeah, they're like, I don't have the tithe, I don't have the temple tax, I don't got nothing.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have my wallet on me.
Man, find JoJo. I paid JoJo.
He got the receipt.
Oh my gosh.
Just FYI, there's no JoJo in the Bible.
There's no JoJo. There's no.
We don't even know any JoJo.
Joseph JoJo.
I just don't want to confuse anyone who maybe hasn't gotten through the whole Bible and is like, JoJo, I need to look out for that name. Like,
it's a running joke at this point. There's no JoJo, I promise.
We're so sorry if we confused you, but
yes,
just wanted to clear that up.
Exactly. Also, I really like the word shekel.
Yeah, it's like a fun name.
Like, I'm not going to say dollars anymore. I'm going to be like, yo, you got some shekels?
Got a couple shekels on you?
Yeah, can I get some shekels, man?
Hey, that sandwich only cost 5 shekels.
Oh, man. All right. Verse 25. We're back. Verse 25. Yes. So, verse 25 says, yes, he does, Peter replied. We're going to stop right there at verse 25. So, this is also in the NLT. I don't think I mentioned that, but like if you've been here around, we use the NLT.
That's our primary, unless we say otherwise.
So, yes, he does, Peter replied. So, we see Peter answering very quickly, like, duh, of course he's going to pay it. And then he walks into the house and Jesus begins talking to him, right? So the verse says, just so we're all on the same page, yes, he does, Peter replied. Then he went into the house. The second part of the verse says, but before he had a chance to speak, Jesus asked him, "What do you think, Peter? Do kings tax their own people or the people they have conquered?" Which is awesome because as I've been in Matthew, I've been doing my Devo in Matthew recently, and there's so many times that either God or Jesus interrupt Peter, and it says, as he was speaking, then Jesus or God says
like,
something, and it's just like, I'm gonna need you to stop because I have something to say. Which is really funny.
Yeah.
Literally. But before he had a chance to speak, Jesus asked the question because he already knew what he was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So we find out that actually rabbis were exempt from paying this tax, and so were the priests in Jerusalem. So if that's true, it's interesting that Peter, as a disciple of Jesus, would have even been asked this question, like, is Jesus going to pay this tax?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So like, was the Pharisee trying to discredit Jesus, test him, upset him? Like, what was he trying to do?
Yeah. Well, what was the reason for the question? Because he knew, obviously they knew about Jesus at this point. He'd been around for at least 3 years in his ministry and all that stuff. So he wasn't a stranger. So and given all the other stuff that the Pharisees did, it doesn't seem strange that they would ask this in a way to like see what kind of answer they would get.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It seems like a dig, kind of like we like discrediting Jesus in a sense. Like he's not like a real rabbi. So like, is he going to pay the tax or something?
Like we're not going to exempt him. It's very
interesting. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's weird.
Something to think about.
Yeah. So verse 26 says, "They tax the people they have conquered," Peter replied. "Well then," Jesus said, "the citizens are free." So here Jesus says the citizens are free, and we think this is definitely a kingdom reference in the sense of Peter and Jesus wouldn't have to pay, not only because Jesus was a rabbi and from what we found he was exempt, but also because they are citizens of heaven and not of the conquered Jerusalem, which was being subjugated by Rome at that time. Right? So it's Jesus saying like, yo, we're not even from here. Why would we have to pay this tax? So essentially Jesus was like, I'm not from here and I am the Son of God, so I don't have to pay.
Right. Like they had more than one exception, basically. Like one, I am a rabbi, so I shouldn't have to pay for that. But if you're not wanting to consider me a rabbi, even beyond that, like I'm a citizen of heaven. I'm not conquered. So again, I shouldn't have to pay.
Yeah. Because he's like, the sons are free.
Right.
Free indeed.
Free indeed.
Yeah. He was like preaching and also not wanting to pay the tax.
But also wanting to make it clear.
To make a point.
Of why he wouldn't.
I think this was a Jesus like teachy moment for Peter. Like Jesus was like, I'm really trying to send something home right now. I need you to get it.
I need you to understand. Yeah. Because Peter answered quickly. Like he didn't even consult Jesus to be like, hey, we're paying, or let me get back to you.
Need to pay, or
like I think so, or like I can't answer that. I need to go consult with my rabbi.
Yeah, which is interesting because that's so like Peter.
But yeah, exactly. I was about to say that. I was like, that would be a Peter thing. Like I'm trying to save face here, or like make sure we do the right thing.
Or I'm the lead disciple. I know.
Yeah. I'm gonna answer for Jesus because I'm in charge of this group, and I want to make sure like we leave here in good standing or something. I don't know. And just kind of like it almost feels impulsive. Like he just answered like, yes, of course. Like, of course we're going to pay.
Duh.
And then going inside like, hey nephew,
so are we going to pay?
Do you have money?
I know we didn't talk about this before, but like, do you got a couple of shekels?
I don't know why I just said yes, but I didn't even ask. Like, do we even have to pay?
Yeah.
Do we have to pay, and do we have to pay? But yeah, such a Peter thing.
Yes.
So we continue in the next verse, and we see Jesus saying in verse 27, however, we don't want to offend them, so go down to the lake and throw in a line. Again, he's talking to Peter. Open the mouth of the first fish you catch, and you will find a large silver coin. Take it and pay the tax for both of us. So Jesus was not obligated to pay his tax under the principle that he had just been talking with Peter about, right? That as a son, not a servant, he did not have to pay this temple tax. But yet Jesus also recognized the importance of avoiding needless controversy. And so he was willing to pay the tax just to not offend those who were questioning him.
Yeah, which is so nice.
Right.
It's like, you know what? We don't want to put them in a tizzy. Let's just pay the tax.
Yeah, let's just do.
Yeah. And while I'm at it, I'm going to perform a miracle.
I'm going to show you how we're going to do that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be unconventional per usual. And so this is where it gets, of course, interesting. So Jesus sends Peter, who's a professional fisherman. Like we've talked about Peter before. And so he sends him to fish, but with a caveat. He says, throw a line. Now, if you know professional fishermen like Peter was, he used nets. That's how Jesus found him in the beginning, right? So he didn't use a hook normally and a line. So we kind of see this humbling moment for Peter to have to fish in this manner. And we can just imagine that he hoped, like, I hope no one else is seeing me, especially my fisherman friends. Like, this is not how I normally fish.
Yeah.
There he is, trying to see him catch a fish with
literally
a line.
One fish, yeah.
Instead of like what his profession was, right? And being used to catching hundreds, not, you know, more than that.
Yeah, which is interesting because it made me think about how him replying to the Pharisee very quickly, like, of course we are, might have been a moment of pride, right?
Yes.
And then now Jesus is using this tool of like go fish with this one line, and find me one fish as a humbling moment of like, dang.
Understanding like this is what sometimes happens, or what kind of the process, right? Of understanding like we can't be prideful about certain things, and we can be humbled.
Yeah, it's interesting.
By the very thing that we know, or quote unquote think we know.
Yeah.
So then, of course, Peter caught the fish, and by God's miraculous provision, there's a coin in it. So he can now pay that temple tax for himself and for Jesus. And so this shows us just an amazing picture, and of course, foreshadowing of the work of the redemption for all men. Jesus didn't actually owe this price, but he paid it. And at the same time, with the same price, he paid for Peter also.
Exactly.
So it's just a parallel of what he did for us, right? He paid a price, and then he paid it for us when we were supposed to pay that price. And he's like, no, I'm going to cover it.
Yeah. And also, this just came to me, but the fact that Peter had to participate.
Yes.
Right? It wasn't just Jesus did everything. He said,
hey, go grab it. And
exactly.
It's there.
He said, go do this. He had to fish, then get the fish, then go pay.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
just like the partnership situation.
Yeah. Again, kind of speaking to that, like we need to do our effort, right? Take our step forward, partner with Jesus. We've talked about that before, but it's not just Jesus doing everything for us. It's our participation in it.
Right.
And so, we definitely see that with Peter. Like he didn't just go and didn't fall from the sky, anything like that. He had to put some work into it, but God still provided. So kind of a summary, we see Peter here facing a conundrum. If he believed Jesus was the Son of God, why should he or they have to pay for the upkeep of what the Jews considered God's house on earth, aka the temple? At the same time, if they didn't pay the temple tax, then they wouldn't be considered faithful Jews, because that's what faithful Jews did. So Jesus solves the dilemma for them by affirming his identity as the Son of God while protecting himself and Peter from still more confrontation with authorities and temple tax collectors.
Yeah.
It's just, again, it's just a beautiful example of how he's still wanting to respect, right? Kind of what's being done, but also proving who he really is. By doing this. Yeah,
because this not only because he's the Son of God, so let me be clear. Yeah. But like because he was in the Jewish culture and a part of the Jewish culture at this particular time.
Right.
Because he did the things that everybody else did, it gave him credibility.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. He was faithful in the customs and a lot of the things that were going on around him.
Right. So they couldn't find any fault in him because he was like, well, I'm not going to offend them even though I don't feel like I need to pay this. I'm still going to pay this tax because he didn't want to like give him a hardened heart. Yes, right? Because then they're offended. So now
or reason for them to like not believe or you can say something negative about him even.
Yeah, or add fuel to the fire because there's already a lot of fuel.
There's a lot of people already doubting him and all this
There's
stuff,
all the prophecies that he has to fulfill. So he's like, I need to chill, pay the tax. Because we need to do what Zechariah said, and we need to do what this person said, and we need to do all these things. Yeah.
And like he says, like, I'm not going to make trouble here. Like, this isn't something that I'm willing to, like, fan the flame or anything like that. So it's something that we do. I'm going to go ahead and do it,
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
The reason he affirms his identity as the Son of God is because of how the verse is read in the King James Version or the New King James Version. And maybe it's in other versions as well, but we're going to read it in the New King James Version. Verse 25, he said, yes. And we had come into the house. Jesus anticipated him, saying, what do you think, Simon? From who do the kings of the earth take customs or taxes, from their sons or from strangers? In verse 26, Peter said to him, from strangers. Jesus said to him, then the sons are free.
Right.
So we think here Jesus is referring to himself as the Son of God, meaning the temple is where my Father dwells, so why would I have to pay the tax? Especially knowing what Jesus was about to do, which was die and then to tear the veil and allow us to have the Holy Spirit living inside of us. So we can talk to God the Father directly outside of the temple, not just in the temple. Yeah.
It's interesting because the original verse, and we'll read that just so we're all on the same page. So it says, we'll just read that specific part of verse 25. It says, do kings tax their own people or the people they have conquered? And then the KJV and the New King James say, From whom do the kings of the earth take customs or taxes? From their sons or from strangers? Which makes a lot of sense in regard of like, if he's talking about the kingdom of heaven, he's like, I'm the son of God. This is God's house. Why would I have to pay the tax, right? So it's just this, I don't know, there's levels to this whole thing. Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah.
But it makes sense. Like, it's kind of, it reminds me of like when you're in your own house, you don't ask permission to like, hey, can I use the restroom? Can I go to the kitchen? Can I grab a snack? It's your house. You're comfortable. You know that you're allowed in all places. If you're a stranger, you most likely are going to ask questions and like help in some way, right? Participate, be like, hey, can I help you? Can I give you this? Can I give you that? And you know, that's kind of the same way. Like, if this is my father's house and I belong here, I don't have to pay to be here or to like pay to like get it fixed because I already live here.
Yeah, and I'm about to destroy it and then raise it back up in 3 days. So there's all these things that are happening. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, and I know that this is not. I don't think it's a very well-known story. I don't think this is a lot of stories.
Yeah, and I think this is the only gospel where it's mentioned.
Yeah.
So I think that's why sometimes it doesn't get like talked about too much. But I think it's a great like parallel to what he's about to do for us. And again, just kind of seeing Peter in that dynamic with Jesus, and their relationship and kind of like the process he took him to like get the money and all that. So.
Yeah. The miracle, the provision, Jesus interrupting Peter. It's a great story. So we hope that you enjoyed it. As we enjoyed it, we had some revelation as we were talking about it. So it was very cool. And as always, this is Fran.
This is Yadi.
We are the Midtown Misfits, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.